Good morning. Welcome to What's Hot with Sea of Tranquility. I'm your host, Pete Pardo, publisher and CEO of SOT. Today is Friday, May the 12th. Welcome to another edition of the show that gives it all to you. Yes, we are covering the latest and greatest releases in the world of heavy metal, progressive rock, jazz, fusion, classic rock, hard rock. As you know, we do it all, and we've got quite a few to jump into today, so we're going to dive right in. We're going to start with a sizzling hot new one from a young band that's been around for a couple of years. This is their second full-length release. They also have a kind of like a demo EP. The band is from California. They are called Night Demon. The trio called Night Demon, and their latest for Century Media is called Darkness Remains. Check that bad boy out. Nice little digipack here. Let's kind of take a look at the booklet. Kind of cool. We got the guys in action. You will see here flying V's all over the place. I really dig this band. If you remember, about 2 years ago, we talked about their full-length debut. Excuse me, and what a kind of white-hot collection of new wave of British heavy metal influence it was. Well, this is kind of no exception on this one. Just check this out. You know, double bass drums, crazy ass guitar riffs and solos, strong vocals, galloping rhythms, you know, the whole 9 yards. Think Iron Maiden, think Diamond Head, think Satan, you know, Tigers of Pantang, a little bit of Saxon, certainly some Thin Lizzy going on, you know, with the, you know, it's only one guitar player. They do all sorts of cool dual guitar harmonies. It's just a really, really good album filled with anthems left and right, you know, Hallowed Ground, Made in Hell. Just some terrific, terrific songs. Life on the Run. Oh, Black Widow is great. Really cool instrumental Flight of the Manticore. And, of course, Welcome to the Night, the lead-off track. It's all really addicting stuff. You know, tunes aren't that long. They're to the point. Lots of crazy guitar work. Great melodies. You know, it's just classic metal, folks. Gotta love a classic metal album like this. Ripping guitar work. I mean, listen to him go. You know, it's like, you can't go wrong with stuff like this. I just totally dig it. Again, from the good old US of A from California. Night Demon, Darkness Remains, our featured CD of the day. All right, we're going to kind of stay in a similar vibe, somewhat. But we're going to go over to Sweden for the latest called Motherless from the band Trial. These guys are on Metal Blade. This is another really, really good one. Again, these guys kind of take their sound from that early 80s, you know, kind of that early classic metal style, you know, but here, you know, maybe some influences from, you know, Merciful Fate, maybe a little Candlemass, maybe a little Sirthungul, Omen, bits of Maiden, sure, you know, bits of Satan, maybe a little Diamond Head, but, you know, a little bit different. Whereas the songs are not fast and furious like these, these you know, more take their influence from like the Scandinavian metal scene as well as the American metal scene of the early 80s, maybe a little bit of metal church too at times. I really dig it a lot. You know, the vocals are great. The songs are a mix of like fast-paced rockers with a little more atmospheric and creepy and heavy numbers and some doomy stuff on here. Really dig it a lot. This is a really, really talented band that I think we're going to be hearing a lot more of in the future. Twin guitars, of course, great riffs, vocals are really, really good, solid, dig it a lot. Trial, Motherless, another new up-and-coming band that you should be keeping your eyes on and ears open to. All right, from there, we're going to kind of move over to prog metal, whatever you want to call it. You know, this conglomeration, I'm going to call them, is not really a band. It's more like a studio project that's been around for a while, and I'm talking about Ayreon. This is called The Source. It is a 2-disc sci-fi concept extravaganza. Arjen Anthony Lucassen is the mastermind behind all this. He's been doing this for quite some time. He's a multi-instrumentalist and writer and composer. Plays guitar, keyboards, puts this whole thing together. He gets all sorts of incredible musicians and mostly vocalists from the prog and the metal scene to kind of take part in these concept albums, these big, full-blown storylines. Each one has like different singers playing different parts, almost like a rock opera, like a prog metal opera, whatever you want to call it. And I mean, just listen to some of this cast. I'm going to put on my glasses for this. So we've got James LaBrie on here. We've got who else? Simone Simmons. We've got Tobias Sammet. We've got Hansi Kirsch. Who else? Russell Allen's here. Michael Erickson. Floor Jansen. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. He's got guest guitar soloists and keyboard players and the whole 9 yards. And it's just I'm finding this album. You know, I have all the Ayreon albums. I'm sure most of you have heard quite a few of them. They're all different. You know, there's some similarities. Sure, it's all very bombastic and all that kind of stuff. But the performances are always impeccable, especially, the vocalists. I think one of the things that most of us come to an Ayreon album for is to hear all these great singers kind of coming together to sing these stories. And this one is no exception. I find some of the tunes here pretty damn heavy. There's some great guitar riffs on this album, pretty bombastic. And the keyboard work is top-notch as well. So I really dig this a lot. Again, it's one you're going to have to invest some time in this. It's two CDs. A lot of music on here. It's a big storyline to kind of let sink in, but in the end, it's all worth it. Really, really good. This is on Mascot Records. Again, Ayreon the source. Check it out. All right, we're going to go over to Germany for the latest from, what do you call these guys? 70s style hard rock, krautrock, psychedelic, prog, whatever. A little bit of stoner. I'm talking about the Samsara Blues Experiment, One with the Universe. This is dynamite stuff, folks. They've incorporated some cool, like, analog-style synths and electric piano and a little Hammond into their kind of power trio sound. Lots of wah-wah guitar solos, lots of atmosphere, heavy Hawkwind meets Black Sabbath meets Pentagram riffs, proggy, almost Canterbury-style keyboards. It's just really good vibes going on here. It's just, this is one you just kind of like put on late at night, dim the lights, and, just kind of let it all soak in. Great guitar solos, I dig it. It's heavy in spots. It's a lot of psychedelic kind of drifting passages, and just really, really cool. Again, if you haven't checked out Samsara Blues Experiment, they got a couple albums under their belt. Their prior albums are a little maybe more in the straight kind of hard rock vein, but I like this one a lot because I think this one kind of takes in their prog and their psych influences and really mixes it well with the heavy rock vibe. So I dig it a lot. One with the Universe. They are on Electric Magic Records. Highly recommend that. All right, we're going to shoot over to Sweden now. There's another band kind of doing that 70s thing. They've been around for a number of years. I'm talking about Siena Root. A Dream of Lasting Peace is their latest. They are on MIG Records. God, there's another one. Great stuff. Again, 70s hard rock. Little bits of prog. A lot of psychedelia. Little bits of kind of like Indian influenced, ethnic style music going on as well. Great vocals, fantastic keyboard work. Okay, Hammond organ all over the place, ripping blues rock guitar solos. Wah-wah, fuzz, all that wonderful stuff. I dig this a lot. The grooves on here are incredible, really incredible. This is not stuff to sit down and just sit like a stone and listen to. That you're gonna want to get up and bang your head a little bit and get those toes tapping. There's some really, really happening stuff on here. I dig this a lot. So again, Siena Root. Go back and check some of their older albums out. They're all pretty incredible. Really dig that a lot. Okay, with that, we're going to move from Sweden to the UK for a band that's been around forever. Okay, these guys are one of the, you could say, the creators of progressive rock, at least one of the first bands that kind of were doing something somewhat progressive back in the late 60s. I am talking about Procol Harum, and Novum is their latest. I mean, look at that beautiful cover artwork there. Hopefully you can see that without the glare. There we go. Gary Brooker and friends are at it still. And this is just a classy album. It's out on Eagle Rock. Okay, our friends over at Eagle Rock, who are doing a wonderful job for so many years, helping some of our older rockers keep their careers going with new material. So, you're asking, who's in the band now, Procol Harum? Well, basically the lineup's been the same for a while. So we got Gary Brooker on vocals and piano. You've got Jeff Dunn on drums, Matt Pegg on bass, formerly of Jethro Tull, Josh Phillips on Hammond organ and keyboards, and Jeff Whitehorn on guitar. Most of these guys have been in the band for a number of years, and they've been pretty active on the touring circuit, especially over in Europe, doing festivals and things like that. So, what can you expect from Novum here in 2017, Procol Harum? Good, classic rock. Little proggy embellishments here and there. The one thing I'm missing on this album is I'm missing a little more Hammond organ. If you go back to the classic Procol Harum albums of the late 60s and early mid-70s, Matthew Fisher's organ was pretty prominent. And I think, the more recent Procol Harum recorded material of the last, decade or two, Gary Brooker and his piano have kind of taken a little, a bit more of a focal point, and the organ has been kind of pushed back a little bit. But, it is here, and the album is a mixture of kind of, mellow pop rockers, some kind of, like I said, a couple tunes that have more of a hard rock vein, others that, a little bit of the prog is stepping forward a little bit. But overall, it's just a really solid album, great melodies, really good playing. The musicianship is top-notch. Brooker still sounds fantastic. I mean, what a great singer he is. And it's just a really good, solid album. There's not a bad tune on it. A couple of really memorable tunes. Some of it's a little mellow, granted. But, half the album is pretty up-tempo, good melodies, a couple hard rockers, and it's like, I like it. If you're a Procol Harum fan, this should find its way in your collection. Can't say any more about it. All right, with that, we're going to jump over to Poland for a band that I've never heard of before, but, they came to us on Season of Mist Records, which, normally does a lot of extreme metal stuff, a lot of kind of avant-garde metal, and this band is from Poland. They are called Disperse. Forward is their latest, little digipack. Very different sounding, really different for Season of Mist especially. Really melodic, very modern sounding. Their fellow Polish band Riverside, a definite influence, especially on kind of like the vocals and vocal melodies. The guitarist is incredible in this band. So if you can think of really modern keyboard sounds and, pop-style vocal melodies, maybe like a little bit more upbeat Anathema, but the guitars are like close to gent style at times. I mean, he comes out with these heavy, complex riffs. Sometimes he bursts out, then he's in the background. Then he comes in again, hammers away some really crunchy, complex chords. Almost Meshuggah-like at times. But again, it's not this all-out assault. Really, really melodic songs. The album is actually a very pleasant listen. Not overly, the riffs are heavy. There's no aggressive vocals on the album. But the riffs, again, they come and go in their heaviness. They're crisp, they're crunchy. A lot of keyboards. I dig it a lot. This really surprised me a lot. So, again, it's Disperse, Forward, Season of Mist. Check that out. With that, we're going to go over to Progressive Recordings. Okay, that's a label that we've worked with for quite a while over in Europe, and they always send us quite a bit of really, really good stuff. And first one, we have a trio of them today. First one is a band called, again from Poland, all right? Country mates with the last band we talked about. Retrospective, and Research is the name of the album. Pretty cool artwork on this one. Nice digipack. These guys are a prog band with a lot of metal tendencies. Again, Riverside. I hear a lot of Pain of Salvation in their music. Porcupine Tree, perhaps. Okay, kind of that modern prog and prog metal sound. Lots of melody, quirky arrangements, a mix of vocal styles. Good guitar work, keyboards, complex arrangements, but some pop song structures as well. really nice mix of everything. I really dig this a lot. Very, very classy album from Retrospective. So check that one out. Okay, for the next one, also on the Progressive Recordings, is a band who've been around for a long time, okay? These guys have been around, I believe, since like the mid-late 70s, but they really only started recording albums in like the early 90s. They're from Mexico. The band's name is Cast. Since they've actually started recording, they've released like a gazillion albums over the course of the last 20 years. They're a band that I've followed pretty closely for most of that 20 years, since I really first started getting heavy into the modern prog scene in the early mid-90s. But, you know, they've released so many albums. Sometimes you kind of lose track if you're not, you know, keeping on top of it. 3 years could go by and they could have released 4 albums. So that's kind of like what's happened with me with them. I have a whole bunch of them up until maybe like the mid-2000s, and then I kind of fell off their wagon a little bit and got this one. The band sent us this one, and then I realized they've got like 3 or 4 or 5 that I just did not even know about. So anyway, think of Cast as a throwback to the early 80s kind of neo-prog scene with a little, like, so think like late 70s, early 80s Genesis mixed with IQ, Marillion, Pendragon, 12th Night, that sort of thing. But, you know, also if you like the Flower Kings and all that kind of stuff, you'll really dig these guys. Very, very melodic, a lot of lush keyboards, symphonic keyboards, tasty guitar work. You know, the vocals, the lyrics are all sung in English, but, you know, they're from Mexico, so there's that little bit of an accent, but it kind of adds the charm to the whole thing. Really, really classy, majestic, modern progressive rock. I really dig it a lot. This new album is called Power and Outcome. Most of the Cast albums have really, really great artwork on them. Nice little digipack here. You know, like I said, great keyboard work. The vocals are very melodic. They've got a guitar player who's been in the band for a few years now, and he's got this kind of like Yngwie Malmsteen kind of neoclassical shred thing going. He doesn't do it throughout the album, but every now and then he like bursts in with this like incredible Yngwie style guitar solo. And they've got a violin player as well who also can shred. So it's really cool. You know, you hear these like majestic symphonic keyboard passages, and all of a sudden the violin and the guitar come in and they start shredding away. It's actually really, really cool. I dig this album a lot. Again, I like almost everything I've ever heard from Cast. They're a very, very classy band with a lot of really, really good albums under their belt. So if you've never investigated Cast from Mexico, start with this one and work your way back. There's a lot of really good stuff in their discography. We got one more from Progressive Recordings. This is a band from, where are these guys from again? They are from Germany. It's an instrumental outfit called Force of Progress. Calculated Risk is the name. We've got 9 tracks in total. You know, really kind of ripping instrumental progressive fusion. So think Liquid Tension Experiment, maybe a little spaced out, a little bit of Dixie Dregs, you know, that sort of thing. Great guitar work, keyboards. You know, most of the guys that are in the band come from other bands on the German prog scene. So they've kind of come together to do this little project. And with the exception of the guy who plays drums, he might play multi-instruments. They're all multi-instrumentalists. So they're all doing like guitar and bass and keyboards and all that kind of stuff. The guy who plays drums also does guitars and bass and keyboards, but he's the only drummer in the band. So they're all kind of like taking turns doing solos and riffs and keyboard tapestries and things like that. It's actually pretty cool, really good. If you like heavy instrumental, progressive rock and jazz fusion, I think you will dig this. Okay, our last new release of the day, as we're kind of running long, is this glorious, glorious box set that just came out, courtesy of the Allman Brothers Band. It's called the Fox Box. It's 3 nights live from the Fox Theater in Atlanta, Georgia, so September 24th, 25th, and 26th from 2004. What more can I say? 8 CDs, 3 full concerts from the famous Fox Theater, basically in their hometown there. You know the lineup. It's Greg Allman, J.M.O., Butch Trucks, Warren Haynes, Mark Quinones, Oteil Burbridge, and Derek Trucks. Twin guitar solos all over the place. The wonderful thing about this, and just, you know, each one comes in a little digipack on its own. The set list for each show is completely different, and there's no duplication of tracks at all throughout the 3 days. How cool is that? So if you were someone who had, the opportunity to go see that night, how cool must that, or all 3 nights I should say, how cool must that have been to be in the audience for 3 nights at the Fox, and every night was a completely different set list, and you had different songs every night, and the stuff they played ranged from their first album all the way to their last. All sorts of stuff. They played some cool covers. They did a couple Derek and the Dominoes tunes. They did a song by the Grateful Dead. Just a tune by the band. There's guest stars on here. It's just, what can I say? This might actually be, for official Allman Brothers live album releases, and there's been a number of them, right? You got the Fillmore all the way back there, and then numerous other ones in the 90s and the early 2000s. This just might be one of the best ever, because it's a great lineup of the band, right? This is the final lineup of the band. They were red hot up until the end, 2004, and they basically played like almost everything you'd ever want to hear. I mean, there's like a 40-minute In Memory of Elizabeth Reed on here. Whipping Post actually is only maybe about 15 minutes on here, but they got other tunes that are like a half hour long and 20 minutes long and 15 minutes long. It's just a lot of jams and just great playing. Greg sounds awesome. His vocals just are always so good. His wonderful Hammond organ tones. Then you got the blistering guitar work of Haynes and Trucks. It's just, I can't say enough about this. If you're an Allman Brothers fan, you need this. Probably it's going to be looked at in time as one of their greatest live album collections. 3 nights, almost every song you'd ever want to hear by the band, and then some. Wonderfully recorded. It's just great. Oh, wait, I got one more. Hold on. Sorry. One more. Here's a cool live release by a well-known jazz fusion bassist called Miroslav Vitous. I never know how to say his name. It's called Ziljabu Nights, live at the theater Slaw. This came out recently, and that's that right there. It's Miroslav and his new band, featuring Gary Campbell on tenor saxophone, Robert Bonisolo on tenor and soprano saxophones, Aiden Eston on keyboards, and Roberto Gatto on drums. It's just a really, really cool live album recorded, I believe, last year. And, he's still at the top of this game. This is like one of the best bassists that's ever graced the jazz and jazz fusion scenes. And he's still kind of doing it. He's got some great tones, uses all sorts of effects. He does, the stand-up bass. He plucks it, he bows it. It's really, really good stuff. I really like this a lot. One of my highly recommended jazz fusion live releases here in 2017. And I know on this particular label here, they've been doing quite a bit of releases recently. This is one of the ones that they're all highly recommended, but make sure you check this one out. This is a legendary bass player, formerly of Weather Report. He's played with McLaughlin and on Chick Corea and all sorts of people, Herbie Hancock. His new band is hot as hell, and he's still doing it, bringing it. Okay, with that, we're going to finish out the day with, of course, Forgotten Favorites. This one comes to us from 1991. It is a spectacular, spectacular release from those early days of the extreme metal scene. This is probably one of the first really technical death metal albums. This band, U.S. band, incorporated death metal, jazz fusion, prog, you name it, into this thing that we had never heard anything like this before. Of course, I'm talking about Atheist, Unquestionable Presence. Yeah, this is their Relapse reissue. Came out with a bunch of bonus tracks. Tony Choi joined on bass for this album. Tony Choi also in Cynic. I believe he was in Death for a brief time as well. You talk about chops of doom. This has it. It's heavy. It's raging. Speed metal, death metal, jazz fusion, prog. Ridiculous guitar solos. The bass playing is off the charts. The drumming is intricate, but it's aggressive. It's heavy. It's like I said, it's like a mix of death metal and speed metal. Again, if you look back in history, this album is very beloved by fans of the extreme metal scene. But I sometimes think that Atheist doesn't really get their due, and this for me is one of the most important albums of the early extreme metal scene, and kind of really paved the way for a lot of the technical death metal that we saw that came afterwards, and that you see a lot of today. So bands like Cynic and Death and Atheist, Pestilence. Where would technical death metal be today without those bands? Nowhere, right? They kind of paved the way, and this album is one of the kind of the things that kind of really started it all. So with that, I'm going to leave you for another week. This is Pete Pardo with Sea of Tranquility. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, and of course we're on here on YouTube. We've got, in a couple days, we've got another one of my rants coming up. This one we're going to talk a little bit about the current state of Yes. Kind of ridiculous, so I'm going to give my feedback and deep-seated opinions on what's going on with Yes these days. But otherwise, we're going to be back over the next week or two or three with some more new releases and things of that sort. So till then, be safe. Make sure to check out all this great new music, and it's all available on our website. Again, www.ctranquility.org for you to read about even more in depth about and check out even more new releases that we're looking at. Till then, be safe. See you next time. Bye-bye.